Oke, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Sinta. I'm from PBI4. Okay, in this video, I would like to explain about chapter 1 until chapter 5, second language acquisitions. Okay, now chapter 1. K is used in second language acquisitions. First, what is second language acquisitions? So, SLA is the process by which people learn language in addition to their native language, or L1. In short, SLA is the process of learning other language in addition to the native speaker. For instance, a child who speaks Hindi as the mother tongue start learning English when he start going to school. Okay, next slide. SLA as a uniform phenomenon. So SLA is not a uniform and predictable phenomenon. There is no single way in which learner acquire a knowledge of a second language. SLA is the product of many factors pertaining to the learners and the learning situations. Different learners in different situations learn L2 in different way. Okay, next, second language acquisition versus first language acquisitions. Second language acquisitions stand in contrast to first language acquisitions. It is the study of how learners learn an additional language after they have acquired their mother tongue. The study of language language begins with the study of first language acquisitions. Okay, next slide. Competence versus performance. Distinctions is often made between competence and performance. Chomsky, 1965. Competence is the mental representations of linguistic rules which constitute the speaker. He wrote internalized grammar. And performance, the comprehensions and productions of language. So, language acquisition studies are interested how competence is developed. However, because competence is not open to direct infections, it is necessary to examine how the learner performs. Okay, next, acquisition versus learning. Acquisition is sometimes contrasted with learning on the assumptions that these are different processes. Acquisition, picking up a second language, took exposure, and it is subconscious. And learning is the study that is learned consciously as a second language. Okay, next, chapter 2, the role of the first language. So, it is a popular belief that second language acquisitions is strongly influenced by the learner's first language, and the role of the L1 in SLA is a negative one. That is, the L1 gets in the way or interferes with the learning of the L2, such that features of the L1s are transferred into the L2. Okay, next, habits. So behaviors psychologists attribute to important characteristic to habit. The first observable and the second automatic. Okay, next, the learning of a habit then could occur too. So the first imitations. The learner copies the stimulus behavior sufficiently often for it to become automatic. And the second, reinforcements. The response of the learners is rewarded or punished depending on whether it is appropriate or otherwise, until only appropriate responses are given. Okay, next, errors. In behaviors accounts of SLA, errors were considered undesirable. They were evidence of non-learnings, of the failure to overcome proactive inhibitions. Okay, the predict areas of potential errors. The first, classroom practice, and the second, having its mind. Okay, last, contrastive analysis. Contrastive analysis had both a psychological aspect and linguistic aspect. The psychological aspect was based on the behaviors learning theory, and the linguistic aspect, in the first place at least, on structuralism linguistic. Okay, next slide. Interlanguage and the natural routes of development. The goal of this chapter to examine the claims that second language L2 learners acquire knowledge of L2 in a fixed order. This emphasizes the importance of environmental factor and first language interference. Interlanguage was the theoretical construct which underlay the attempts of SLA researchers to identify the stage of development through which L2 learners pass on their way to L2 proficiency. Okay. Next, interlanguage focuses on these three principal features, all of which were raised by Selinker in one way or another. They are listed as follows. The first, language learner, language is permeable. And the second, language learner, language is dynamic. And the third, language learner, language is systematic. Okay, next, error analysis. The goals of traditional error analysis were pedagogic errors provide information which could be used to sequence items for teaching or devise remedial lessons. Okay. Next, the procedure for analysis is spelled out in Carter 1974. It is follow. The first, a corpus of language is selected. The second, the errors in corpus are identified, so distinct lapses from errors. And next, the errors are classified. So this includes assigning a grammatical descriptions to each error. And next, the errors are explained. In this stage of the procedure, an attempt is made to identify the psycholinguistic cause of errors. Last, the errors are evaluated. This stage includes assessing the series of errors in order to check principal teaching decisions. Okay, next, chapter 4, variability in interlanguage. Variability refers to cases where a second language learner uses two or more linguistic variants to express a phenomenon, which has only one realization in the target language. First elaborated in works by Lebert 1972 on native speaker of language that variability is a systematic function of factors like the degree of formality of the context of utterance and the nature of the surrounding linguistic context. Okay, next, study of interlanguage variability. Charone 1982 has attempted to explain systematic variability by suggesting that second language learners have a series of overlapping mental grammar, which corresponds to the different contexts in which the second language is used. At one extreme, learners have a grammar for informal or vernacular second language use, for example, in spontaneous casual conversations. Okay, next slide. Types of interlanguage variability. The first, systematic variability. Systematic variability interlanguage is systematically variable in the sense that although some of the variability observed is the result of relatively unpredictable factors regarding the states of mind and the emotional factor, other variability, particularly that deriving from the user knowledge of how to use language appropriately, is systematic. Okay, next type, situational variability. So, when a learner is asked to answer the teacher questions in class, he will make mistakes which he will never make a grammar test, for he is urgent situations and has no time to make full use of his linguistic knowledge. Okay, next, linguistic variability. So, linguistic context refers to the elements that precede and follow the variable structure in questions. Okay, next, non-systematic variability. Interlanguage is also characterized by non-systematic variability, which is of two types, the first, performance variability and free variability. Okay, next type, psycholinguistic variability. Psychological context refers to the extent to which type of language use afford time for planning and encourage or discourage monitoring. Okay, next, pre-variability. Pre-variability refers to the phenomenon that the learner processes two or more forms which he used to realize the same range of meanings. Okay, last types, performance variability. Performance variability is the result of some failures of performance, including slips of time, false starts, derivations from rules, change of mind, and so. last chapter, chapter 5, individual learner differences and second language acquisitions. Okay, introduction second language. L2 learners vary on a number of dimensions to do with personality, motivations, learning style, aptitude, and age. So, next aspect of SLA. Okay, the first age, the second learning style, the third aptitude, the fourth motivations, and the last personality. So, the first age. Age is the variable that has been most frequently considered in discussions of individual difference in SLA. It is doubled to in part to the east, which can be measured unlike all the other general factors. It can be described reliably and precisely. Okay, next, cognitive style or learning style. So, cognitive style is a term used to refer to the manner in which people perceive, conceptualize, organize, and resolve information. Okay, next, aptitude. Aptitude is not easy to define. It is usually defined in terms of the tests that have been used to measure it. Carroll and Sapon's 1995 identify three major components of aptitude. The first, phonetic coding ability, the second, grammatical sensitively, and the last, inductive ability. Okay, next, motivations. Motivations is key factor for explaining the success or failure of any difficult activity. Researchers agree that motivation is an important part of mastering a second or foreign language. Okay, last, personality. Cattell 1970, for instance, attempts to measure personality using a series of dichotomies seen as plotted on continue, such as cold, warm, shy, venturesome, not assertive, or dominant. Okay, next, identifications and classifications of learner factor. Identifying individual differences and classifying them is a complex task due to difference or characteristics are abstract phenomena. The main difficulty is that it is impossible to identify, observe, judge, and directly identifying qualities such such aptitude, motivations, or anxiety. Error analysis focuses on the process of learning a second language. When a student learns a second language, there are many deviations. In other words, error analysis is a technique for identifying, classifying, and interpreting systematically the mistake made by students who are learning a second language. Okay, next, a personal factor. So the first, group dynamic. Group dynamics seem to be important in classroom SLA. And the second, individual learning technique. Again, the last, attitude to the teacher and coach material. Okay, I think that's all. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.